Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 27th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, the time is now to proclaim the 2022 Miami Hurricanes a real deal football team. This final transfer pickup last night, Maryland transfer Daryl Jackson, to me, is the final bow on what has been, an entire offseason here of presence for Miami, for the fan base, for Mario Cristobal, because this now gives them, I believe, sufficient talent on the defensive line to be able to overcome any deficiencies they have at linebacker and be a more than representative defensive football team this season. And, to me, with this last pickup, Miami unquestionably is the favorite to win the Coastal and get to Charlotte. Your thoughts?
Well, let's be clear. If you're just talking about Daryl Jackson, Daryl Jackson's a great pickup, not because he's going to be an All-American this year, but because he could be an All-American in 2 or 3 years. Remember, this is a guy who only played a couple years of high school football. Why everyone loves him isn't because of his 55 grade in Pro Football Focus based on his freshman year at Maryland. He wasn't very good at. He was good at Maryland for Maryland, but he didn't grade out particularly well. You want to be at 70 or above. He was
young. He was a young player, but this is
correct.
This is a guy that is.
This isn't a guy. You asked me a question. This isn't a guy who's coming.
I know, but you're being negative again.
How many? I said he's gonna be an All-American in a couple of years. How's that negative? I just don't. I don't. So anyway,
he's gonna make a difference this season.
So you got Jared Harrison Hunt and Leonard Taylor, who I still think
better.
will be starters.
This kid's gonna be better. Watch.
Okay, well, physically he's better. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, but he doesn't understand football, and he's got to learn a new system. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, okay, he's bigger, faster, stronger, he's going to play. Leonard Taylor and Jared Harrison happen to be excellent defensive tackles. What Miami didn't have is depth at defensive tackle. Jacob Lichtenstein was supposed to be at end and tackle. He was forced to only play tackle in the spring. Now he can do both like they want him to do, because this guy can be a heavy rotation guy at tackle. If you expect him to be an All-American in year one, Gary, or even All-ACC in year one.
I didn't say All-American. I said he will make
you're smoking something over there on your trip.
Line.
Yeah. So you think he'll start in year one? That's what you think?
I think he will, if not start, be a very, very visible presence in a rotation.
Right. He'll be. Yeah, correct. I agree 100% with that. 100%. I agree with that. You're making it sound like this was the greatest player ever, and this is the icing on the cake, and this is why they're going to the ACC championship. I was a little confused. But if you take all 11 transfers as a unit, I agree 100%. I think they should reach the ACC title game. I think they will reach the ACC title game, and this is negative Maddie talking. So, this is the real deal. They have that talent. The main challenge, I guess, is Pittsburgh. People are very high on Pittsburgh because they got, the transfer quarterback. They got a lot of people back, but on paper, this Miami team is just better. With good coaching now, I just can't imagine them not reaching the ACC title game. Are they still at the Clemson level? I've looked at Clemson's returning pieces. They're going to have probably, if not the best defense in the nation, the second or third best defense in the nation. It's going to be a tall order to beat Clemson, but Miami will be right there in terms of at least being in that title game, which will be exciting. I think they're really going to be
You're coming around. I apologize for being a little rattled a moment ago.
Well, you're making it sound like Daryl Jackson was the icing on the cake and the greatest player ever. I don't understand it.
Big on the
I'm looking at his film and his grades and his high school career, and he doesn't just jump from what he did at Maryland last year to be this All-American here or even All-ACC here. He's going to be really good with the coaching in 2 or 3 years, really, really good. He's got everything you want. And listen, that's why you show these highlight tapes, right? And the highlight tapes, anybody can have a great highlight tape. If you have a bad highlight tape, you're just not being recruited. It's called a highlight tape for a reason, because everyone can have a highlight tape. So what you're looking for is that frame, that body, the hips, the movement, the fluidity, the quickness. This guy has it all. What he doesn't have is the technique, the coaching, the years of playing football, the understanding the ins and outs and everything, the instinctiveness. But when you look at, this is why, not everyone, but this is why Florida, Tennessee, Florida State wanted him. Those were really the other three that were really hard after him, was because they see what he'll be in the future. Is he going to come in the first day of fall drills and nobody's doing and just dominate? No. But as the season goes along, he's in the rotation, he'll get better and better. And I think by, in 2023 and 2024, this is an all ACC and maybe even better type, frame player that, et cetera. So that's why they took him as a sophomore, because he's got 3 years of eligibility. It's not about this is the guy who's going to lead us to the promised land this year. It's about this guy who can really help us this year. And then the next 2 years after he gets in this system, he's going to be amazing.
All right, you could end up being right. Okay, maybe
I'm always right. What do you mean I could end up being right? I'm always right.
I could be looking at this through, orange and green colored glasses.
Shocker. When has that ever happened to you?
If I was in the studio right now, which I'm not, if I was in the studio right now, I would be picking up my cane shades, those great shades that I have in my studio, and I'd be putting them on right now because that's how good I feel about this acquisition. Now, let's talk a little bit about how it came about. We've got a story on the website this morning, and the inside story on Jackson's recruitment. And so he visited last weekend, and when he left Miami, I think felt pretty good about where it stood. But when he got home, and Matt, we were on the front lines of this because we had an appointment to speak to him, and that appointment got put off. And that told us from experience that something was up. And then as the minutes went by, we started to figure out that what was up was the Florida Gators. And they were making a major push. I'm sure that they were being very competitive, with their collective in Gainesville. I'm sure their collective was trying to be competitive in the NIL arena. And they were a legitimate force. And it was looking like they were going to get a visit from Jackson this weekend. Well, in classic Mario Cristobal recruiting form, they were able to get his mom to drive, I think it was 7 hours, to come down to Miami, meet with the coaches, take the visit herself, see everything, meet everybody. I saw a picture of her with John Ruiz. So I'm assuming that part of her trip to South Florida was an NIL meeting with John Ruiz, which is all above board. Like, the parents can meet with John Ruiz in advance. Many of them have. In a lot of these recruit cases, they are contacting him when they start considering Miami to explore their NIL possibilities, even before they visit campus, just so they have an idea of what the situation would be if they come to Miami. So she did all this. This all happened yesterday. We have a story about it on the website with quotes and everything. You guys can read up on it and get an inside look at how this all came about. But by the time her visit was over, Matt, she gave her blessing to him choosing Miami, and he very quickly committed and announced.
Yeah, she's a parent. University of Florida is 2.5-hour drive from her house. Miami's a 7.5-hour drive from her house. I think she was really trying to push him to Florida at first. She had sort of that old image of Miami, a little bit scary, whatever the case may be. I don't know, because it's not Miami anymore. So they needed to get her on campus and sort of let her see that, hey, Coral Gables is pretty nice. Miami's a pretty nice city. Your son's going to be taken care of just fine here. And so that was it. He always wanted to be at Miami. It really wasn't a case of he was wavering and Florida was in his ear and telling him, oh, you come here, we'll give you this and we'll give you that and da-da-da-da. No, he wanted to be a Hurricane, but he was going to do what his mom told him to do at the end of the day. And mom said Miami's good with me, and that she knew that's where he wanted to go the whole time. So as soon as she called him, he's like, okay, done. That's it. He didn't even want to go to Florida if he didn't have to. So it worked out great for Miami.
So we'll talk more as the week goes on about the Miami defense and whether it has enough now with Jackson on board. I think it does, but we'll break it down more for you as the week goes forward. But there's a lot more to talk about that's also on the website today. But before we do that, let's hear from our friends at Life Wallet.
Focus on your self-love. That helps a lot. If you know how to control your self-love, then you'll be fine.
You can overcome obstacles by having faith, just keep pushing and keep moving forward.
Dark times don't last, tough people do.
A word of encouragement would be resiliency, to keep going no matter what.
Be an adversity killer. Always fight through and keep pushing when you think it's tough.
Don't let no one prove you wrong, and you always got to prove yourself right.
Stay patient, keep working, stay persistent, and your time will come.
Pretty good advice there, Matt.
I'm sorry, I put it on mute whenever those commercials come on. What was he talking about?
Self-love.
I heard self-love. I heard self-love, and I hit the mute button. So
self-love, baby. Some great messaging in there. All right. Let's get back to the point. We'll talk more football in a minute, but Miami also picked up a big basketball commitment yesterday from Norhad Omer, and kind of rounds out things for Jim Larrañaga as well. Again, Life Wallet, John Ruiz, NIL deal, sealed the whole thing, and he gives Miami a versatile big man to complement the guards that they're going to have. And this team very quickly looks to me like it's coming together. You'll remember before the start of last season, I said I really liked the way the basketball team was coming together. And I thought that they could be very good last year, and they made the Elite Eight. If Isaiah Wong comes back, I love the way this team is coming together too. And I think they can, again, be the kind of team that can develop and go deep into the NCAA tournament. So, Matt, I think it's safe to say Miami basketball, which went through that FBI issue, which kind of disappeared from the landscape for a couple of years, Miami basketball is firmly back. I mean, it looks like this is now going to be sustainable.
Team's going to be terrible. No, this is an Elite Eight team on paper for sure. Jim Larrañaga's always done more with less. Now we just have to make sure he doesn't do less with more, because this is as good a roster as I've seen for this team since they were winning an ACC title. There's talent across the board. There's 4 freshmen coming in who are all going to be great and will have roles, or should have roles of some kind. They may not be able to because of all the talent that's coming back. Jordan Miller, and especially if Wong comes back, that's sort of the key. You got to get Wong back, because there's so many pieces right now that can score and distribute. And the key is really going to be what they had last year, which is what Jim Larrañaga builds with his teams, right? You see Duke and North Carolina and some of these other teams play at times, and they're playing individually because they have players that want to be first-round NBA draft picks. What Jim Larrañaga did last year was he created a team that just wanted to win and didn't care if they had 0 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists. If they're diving for balls and dishing it to teammates or dishing it to somebody else and they're scoring and they're winning, those guys were happy. And that's the culture. If Jim Larrañaga can keep that culture, and that's why he's kicked some kids off the team in the last few years that you sort of wouldn't expect him to say mid-season goodbye, after the season you want to come back, sorry, goodbye. It's a culture that he knows in today's college basketball. He doesn't want to deal with it. He's too old for that stuff, He doesn't want to deal with players who are me guys. He wants team guys, and I assume that he's done his research, and the people he's bringing in are all about the team. And guess what? When you're all about the team, you're going to get your numbers also, and it's all going to work out for you, and it's win all the way around. And I think if they don't make the Elite Eight next year, something's wrong. Like, that's how good this
is. There's something wrong, yeah.
They're a top 10 team now.
Let's set the Final Four.
Listen, the ACC media is still going to pick them last, so we know that's coming.
Yeah, well, they may have learned their lesson on that last year.
Every year, Miami's done better than what the ACC media picks them to do. Every single year, I can't. Even when they were bad, they were still getting picked last anyway. So if they weren't in last, they were still doing better than the ACC media said.
No, they got that Carolina bias working. All right, so before I get back to football, let's very quickly touch on baseball. I'll call it a bad loss. 12-4 loss to Stetson Tuesday night. Not a great performance by the Canes, obviously. And I think those midweek games can sometimes be traps, but they'll try to rebound, obviously, from that. but Matt, from a recruiting standpoint, it's just a continuation of what we've seen. Now we've got the coaches on the road, visiting different high schools around the country. We're seeing new offers coming in. We've got coverage on the site today of a few young receivers that got offers. And, your instinct is that, oh, geez, why are they offering these out-of-town receivers? They've got so many receivers in South Florida. Well, those receivers in South Florida aren't committing yet. And Mario's only going to sit around and wait so long. Okay. Of course, we talked about him yesterday. We looked at some of the tape on a few of them and stuff. There's very good players, obviously, here in South Florida. Miami doesn't need to go out of town, but they're not committing yet. So, what's clear is Mario Cristobal and his staff, they're not getting caught with their pants down, and they're starting to look outside of South Florida as well, so that the Brandon Innes's of the world and these guys, if they decide not to stay home, that they will be covered at wide receiver. But I think at the end of the day, Matt, they will take maybe 4 receivers.
Yeah, and going back to baseball for a minute, the Stetson starting pitcher was Jonathan Gonzalez, who played Howard Palmetto baseball right here in Miami's backyard. And my son was in the same division with him, and we beat Jonathan Gonzalez with my son pitching against Jonathan Gonzalez. So I guess by, by transfer power, I don't know what you call it. By logic, my son beat the Miami Hurricanes yesterday. I guess it's good for me, but bad for the Hurricanes. So it's bad, and good for me. Anyway, so yeah, with the wide receivers, look, the coaches go on the road and they visit different schools, and they're not going there for no reason. They're not going there to look at bad prospects and just sort of eat at the nearby Arby's or whatever, They got the meats. They don't have the recruits at Arby's. So you're going to these high schools and you're evaluating and giving out offers. And you know what? When you give out an offer at a high school, it means a lot to that program. And it sort of sets you up for the future with that program. So there's wide receivers. There's a couple of receivers, 3-star guys in this year's class they give offers to out of state. Some fans in the past would say, oh my gosh, this means we're not getting any of the major recruits in our backyard at wide receiver. They're offering all these other wide receivers out of state now. But no, it's setting up the future. It's a coach comes in, meets with the whole high school staff, sits down with them. Hey, here's who I am. Hey, here's where I'm at. Hey, this is what our program's all about. And hey, we really like your program, and we're going to offer your wide receiver. And the coaches love that. It helps their program. It gives them publicity. It puts eyes on their program. So, we'll see if they keep recruiting some of these kids down the road. We always said in the past, many days we just drop these kids. But in this case, you very well may offer some kids that you don't really need, that you may not recruit that hard, because obviously I think there are higher priorities at wide receiver. But like I said, it's just good for the Miami program.
And, one of those kids is Nathan Leacock, who was visited yesterday by his school was visited by Josh Gaddis, who told his coach he'd be offering him before he left. And so that story's on the website. There's others. Also a story on Missouri defensive end, Shantavian Bradley. He is going to take an official visit to Miami. He breaks down where things stand. We also have an update on an offensive lineman by the name of Fletcher Westfall. He added a Cane offer while visiting UM, and we catch you up on where he stands. Also on the website today is an update with Ruben Bain, the high priority defensive end from Miami Central. He's another one that I know they would love to have committed right now. If he's going to come, I don't know what he's waiting on, but he's having a great time traveling all over the country, considering a lot of different schools. But we have an update on Ruben Bain on the website today as well. So lots of stuff for you to sink your teeth into. There'll be more coming as the coaches keep on their spring tour and continue giving out offers. And we'll have all that for you at CaneSport.com. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us today on Good Morning CaneSport, and we'll see you next time, everybody.